And here we are, and it unmuted me.
Oh, yay. It's working.
Yeah, it did.
I didn't do anything wrong. It's usually my problem. So hello, and welcome to the show. So I'm really excited for today. So we are going to be talking about the latest changes we've made to the ECS console. And as you all know Brent, you all know me, but we have a special guest, Rashida, today, which maybe take a moment, introduce yourself, and say hello, and then maybe we'll get started.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. And thanks, Adam and Brent, for having me on the show. Really excited to be here. I am the lead UX designers on the containers team. And today I'll be talking about the latest changes that we have made for the ECS console. So super excited to be here and to share all the updates and what's new and what's upcoming.
Yeah, awesome. And so so Rashida's going to go through, just kind of talk through what we've changed and kind of the thought process. And then we're going to demo, I have the console open. We're going to show you in real time. We'll do it live, and we'll have a lot of fun doing it. So, I just want to say that as you've been, building the new console and updating it, the one thing that I've really appreciated is, I've been brought in a few times to just give some input and insight, and I know others on the team have as well. But really, it's the focus on doing this in a way that really does what's best for our customers. And I know you're going to talk about this, but it's just every time we talked, it was just the first thing was, how are our customers doing this, and are we doing this in the way that our customers would be delighted when they enter the console? So I just really wanted to give kudos there, because we talk about it a lot, but the truth is, behind the scenes, we really are customer obsessed, and we build because ultimately, look, they're the ones that are going to be coming, kicking and screaming, telling us if they don't like something. So.
I think you have given a perfect segue for me to talk more about the customer obsession culture that we have in the design team. It's very much user-centered. All the design processes are very much driven by what our user needs are. And I'll be talking a little bit about some of the exciting behind-the-scenes heavy work that we did in terms of like going through those processes, validating our assumptions and hypothesis. So we are super customer obsessed, and day one, so to say, is very ingrained in our DNA, even in the design teams.
That's awesome.
Definitely. So let's should we get into the presentation?
Yes.
All right, let me pop that up on the screen for you.
The maestro, Brent.
And boom.
Yeah, so like Adam mentioned, I'll be walking through how we built this, or how are we building the world-class ECS UX, and what we have today with the new and upcoming changes. Before I do that, just highlighting the culture that we have, very customer obsessed, super user-centered driven design. So basically, we start off with really understanding the problem, formulating our hypothesis, defining them, and then moving into, continuously iterating on our ideas. We have like multiple ideas, we iterate on them, converge on them, and finally we have a very rigorous testing mechanism to test all our hypotheses. And I'm super excited to also talk about our design systems. It's what is powering all these new updates and new launches that you are seeing for our consoles. It is giving us a very streamlined and simplified look and consistent look and feel across our console. But besides that, the number one user need, which is in terms of performance and very modern and consumer looking UX, that is what is like being driven. Plus, it is also heavily based on accessibility, so it balances not just the new and shiny part, but also like is accessible for pretty much everyone, every one of our users. So highlighting those three couple of tenets that we have in our design processes, and then I would like to dive straight into what we have launched with the new ECS UX. the ECS UX is the new one is very Fargate centric. It has Fargate first approach because what we discovered during our user research was Fargate adoption is growing a lot and it has lower operational burden. So more and more of our workloads from our customers are being used with Fargate. So Fargate is used for production, and we wanted to have a Fargate first approach where console is not just a learning but also like a monitoring tool. With that, there are a couple of highlights that I want to show here, and Adam will go into like the details of like going to each of the screens towards the end. But basically, we have a very simplified UX for monitoring your applications, your clusters in a single pane of glass. So you don't have to like go through multiple context switches. A very streamlined user experience for deploying your applications, basically out of the box intelligent defaults, and more heavy lifting from the system side where you don't have to figure out a lot of like those knobs and whistles in terms of your configurations, and you can just go ahead and like focus on your business applications. Finally, another exciting update that we added here was the streamlined UX for capacity providers, and we are continuously working on improving all of that so that you can have you can utilize capacity providers more in your tooling, in your overall like toolkit and your processes. And there are some of the upcoming changes that I wanted to talk. Which is around service and task logs and container instances, which are part of the upcoming release. Adam, anything that you might want to add here before?
Yeah, thanks, Rashida. There's a theme here, and the theme is simplicity. I think one thing we've heard from our customers, we hear over and over, is our customers range, right? We have very advanced customers that they know this stuff inside and out. They're pros. They don't need us. They got it, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the other end of the spectrum where customers are new and they're just starting to onboard into containers, into ECS. And one of the themes here is enabling those customers to come into the console, not have to know all the boilerplate and the minutia. I've always wanted to use that word, and I just did. But not having to really understand all of that, just to get started. And I think taking the Fargate first approach, these are just what we're doing is we're embedding sane defaults into your deployment experience. So if you're not an expert in all these things yet, you don't have to be. You'll get there as you grow and iterate, but we're trying to make it easier. And I really specifically to the capacity providers piece, as we talk about where do we schedule our tasks, and this is maybe a little more advanced as you start growing as an ECS user, but you have to think about, scaling and, how do you schedule your tasks? I think capacity providers is going to provide that layer of abstraction, which it does. But as users get more and more familiar with capacity providers, it's going to just enable them to schedule their tasks without having to think about all the underlying infrastructure.
Well,
so
and
it's easier.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things that I like about this line of thinking is Fargate first and streamline for capacity providers, streamlining the user experience for it. Those are two things that we've said, and we predict this is the future. This is what everyone needs to be looking towards in the future. This is going to solve so many issues that our customers have had in the past. And, with how do you scale? Where do you scale to? What, how do you, what kind of billing provider should I be using, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like all of these things are just mechanisms that are part of capacity providers. Or because you're choosing Fargate, you get the simplicity, like you were saying, Adam, of, I don't have to manage an OS. I don't have to count instances. I don't have to bin pack or any of that stuff. So this is the future. And I love that we took that and we're building that, the future console with these future features in this direction in mind.
Right. And to add to that, I mean, each of the bullet points that you are seeing right now, there's a story to it. And we have heard that and empathized with that story with our users. And we have looked at like how people use it in different scenarios. So as a developer with those same defaults, you don't have to worry about your networking configurations. You don't have to worry about, the billing part. Like you can go with Fargate first and you are done. You just have to deploy the application, and then Fargate will take care in terms of like scheduling it, and all the capacity provider goodness will like come right out of the box. So you don't have to go and configure it, and we have the same kind of intelligent defaults if you want to go with the advanced use cases where you are thinking about VPCs, networking, load balancing, all of those like you can tweak from the console itself. So when we were doing our user research, we heard a lot of like our customers talking about these scenarios interchangeably, and we have balanced it out in the new UX, and we are continuing to improve this. So it is very incremental right now. You see a streamlined monitoring and deployment experience where you start from list of your clusters. You see a visualized way of seeing all your tasks, all your services within each of your cluster, and then drilling down from that, going to the service detail page where you will see all the health summary in one pane of glass without switching that context, going to multiple different consoles. Even those parts, they follow the story pattern. So everything is driven by that working backwards principle and a very customer obsessed mindset, as I highlighted earlier.
Nice.
Yeah, very
So
cool.
you said it just a second ago. You said this is just the beginning. And I see that last bullet point there, upcoming exciting new changes. It's probably worth mentioning, and maybe you did already, but I'll reiterate it, that this is just a work in progress, right?
Yes.
So there's still more to come. And,
Yep.
and on top of that, you're still trying to gather feedback from customers, right?
Yes. So, like I mentioned, we are very much customer centric. So we love to speak with our AWS users, not just our existing customer panels, but going out in the wild and like talking with our users. So that's very much part of our process. And with the new and upcoming changes, we have heard the customer voice. People who tweeted to the containers team members on. Through the Twitter or some other social media handles, and commented on our public roadmap that is out there. We have gathered all that feedback and prioritized that in the upcoming release. So the upcoming release is very much focused on services, task logs, container instances, and a couple other exciting things. And it's like coming soon, right after this new launch. So we have just gotten started, and I'm just excited about the changes that are coming in the next few releases.
And I'm glad Brent just popped this up because, comment from NovaViz is, but there's some features in the old console that the new one doesn't have yet. And those features are missing, for their team. And this is why you have the ability to flip back to the old console. So we made it very easy for you to go back and forth. And another great reason to add feedback, because your feedback goes directly to Rashida and her team, and they're reviewing this and collating this data to determine what do we release next in this new version of the console.
And this is a struggle at AWS on probably, I can't speak for every service team, but I know that our own teams have had this struggle, ever since I've been here. It's when do you launch? And, do you develop, a complete set of features and then launch? Or do you develop, a core set of features and launch and then iterate on it? And of course, there's always going to be the other side that would wish that you did the other thing. And I think this is what you've done here is probably the best choice, because it gives people the option to opt in or opt out, try it out, go back, and then it gives you the opportunity to collect feedback. And that's really, if you think about, if we had developed every single feature. We had feature parity with the old console, and then we launched, and everyone hated it. We would have gone and done that, entire set of work and never gathered feedback, and we would have missed out on an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So-
thank you for highlighting the comment from, I think it was NovoViz. Thanks for highlighting that. Like Brent mentioned, we are very much aware of like the feature parity issues that we have with the new console, but we have to take iterative approach in terms of like making sure we are prioritizing the right requests that are coming through. And so if you can use the feedback mechanism, send us the feedback. We are actively looking at it. Like I cannot tell you, like pretty much every single team member from our team is actively looking at it, and we are prioritizing it in the next couple of releases. Like you see right now, the service task logs, container instances, there are a couple other things that came through that feedback mechanism, came through the public channels, and we were able to like prioritize it quickly. And I will show you how we have been doing prioritization behind the scenes in the next slide, which is very much driven with the user journey approach at AWS, and in general, that customer obsessed mindset that we have. So if you don't mind, I can switch to the next slide, or we can like discuss more about the features.
Let's do it.
So pretty much every single of our scoping decisions, are the way that we are launching these features are coming from how the journeys are mapped across different personas, and we are working backwards from those goals, putting that in the overall experience. This is all driven through our user research, the hypothesis we are formulating, and the testing we are doing with our customer panels, and the feedback, of course, that is coming in through all the feedback channels that we just mentioned a few minutes back. So this is where we are at. Any questions here? I'll pause so that people can look at this. Just a heads up, the assets are a little bit pixelated because they are internal. So yeah, you won't see like the entire journey here.
Well, so I'd be curious to understand how do we, and if we can even talk about it, how did we develop these personas? How did this come about?
Mm-hmm. So these personas are actually driven from our top level user research initiatives at AWS, and they are coming to sort of top down, but at the individual team levels, we kind of validate these personas and extend them based on our user needs. So for, let's say, a typical container user, there are certain things that they would like to see. For example, they are more in tune with like the monitoring and troubleshooting workflows. So we'll prioritize those in our persona goals, in the user journeys, and we will make sure our use cases are aligned with those goals and the user journey aspects of like the stages that a user would take in the journey.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can move on, if there's another slide to go through.
Yeah. And the last one that I have here before we dive into like all the goodness of the new changes that Adam will go through, I want to highlight one more time all the feedback channels. We have that toggle feedback mechanism. Please actively use it. Send your feedback, brutal, not brutal, good, not so good, to us. We are actively looking at it. We are prioritizing it. We also have the high-level research council. So if you want to be part of our user testing efforts, feel free to sign up using this link here. There's also all the social media handles, definitely Twitter, where all our container team members are, tweet to them, and that also gets channeled to us. If you have a SA or a TAM or a support contact at AWS, feel free to share that feedback. We are actively engaging and taking that feedback also. Is there anything else that I missed here?
I think that was a good amount. And look, exactly. So as Brent said, Brent's just channeling all the energy into me here. But
let's overload his Twitter.
The truth is, our colleague, I was on Twitter, Nathan Peck, got some feedback and took it, brought it right back to the team. I saw it all with my own eyes. It was really cool. And So reach out to us, let us know. And, of course, good, bad, just, be nice when you give us the bad feedback, but anyway.
Yeah. And let's just mention for a second that, what does useful feedback look like? Especially when it's negative. If it's positive, hey, we love this new design, great. We're going to take that and we're just going to, file that away and use it as motivation when we're having a really bad day. Yay, we're on the right track. We're doing the right thing. When it's negative, which is fine, and we totally welcome it, it would be really helpful if you could include details. What would you like it to how would you like it to behave? Instead of just saying, I hate the new whatever, just say, what if it did this instead? Or I'm really looking for this kind of information out of it. Like that is super useful. And that takes you to the top of our, this is valuable feedback list. So definitely consider that.
Yes, the more descriptive you are describing your problem, it is easier for us to prioritize that, not just like from prioritization perspective. We really want to understand how we can help you better in your productivity, in your processes and your tool chain. So please be descriptive. That would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And okay, so let's take a look at the console. Let's dive in real time here. So I'm zoomed in. If I need to zoom in more,
I think you're good. Let us know, Twitch and YouTube, if this isn't big enough, but it looks good on my screen.
Cool. So first and foremost, before I even dive into the cluster view, in the top left, this is that toggle. So this is where I can go back to the old experience, or if I want the new ECS experience, I just toggle it back on. And right here, tell us what you think. So this is where you give feedback, and give us that good feedback so we can continue to improve. But this is where you're going to do it. So let's close this out. Okay, so I'm drilled down into the cluster view. So already, I'm just going to tell you, I am a sucker for a pretty UI, and I really like the colors and these are live, essentially live, graphs that are telling us as tasks are pending, coming, they haven't launched yet, but they're in the process of launching. I'd be able to see visually in all of my clusters that I have on the screen here, what's happening in real time.
Right.
So it really gives me that top-down view. Were you going to say something, Rashida?
Yes, just to add to this, we also heard from our feedback channels about having a compact view, and we are actively working on it in the upcoming release. So stay tuned.
Nice. Oh, so like a more maybe line.
Yes, the grid table view that will help you. Like if you have a lot of clusters, then you can definitely use that.
Very nice. Very nice. So this, just from a high level, you can see cluster name, how many services and tasks are running in the cluster. And under the cluster name is the default capacity provider strategy for your cluster. So if you're not using capacity providers, or you don't have a default set for your cluster, it's just going to tell you there's no default found. But as you can see, all my other clusters in my demo environment are using Fargate. So, just explained it. Perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
We also have help panel to learn more about capacity providers and the default, no default found, which means you should be using capacity providers, but you don't have that set. We are actively encouraging that as a best practice based on what we have seen with our larger deployments, larger customer sets. So putting all of those best practices ingrained in our same defaults.
That's cool. What does it say when you wave over the no default found?
Very good. So yeah, it tells you no default capacity provider strategy found, and ensure you update this. So this goes back to that user experience of if you don't understand what capacity providers are, it's going to, there's tips all around here to help you understand the different components as you walk through. So let's drill into a cluster. So I'll go to my development cluster. And already, top down, I just see how many tasks and services are running, what's active, what's draining, what's pending. So I can drill down in my services here or tasks. So, when we talk a service in ECS, actually, I'm not going to explain it because when I deploy, we'll show that it will actually explain what a service is.
That's cool.
So this is my cluster overview. And I believe if I were to click edit, so one thing you'll see is as we're adding more functionality, some may not exist in the V2, the latest update of the console. So it may take us back to the older console look. I don't even know how to say it properly, but
V1.
the previous look, right? Yeah, V1, whatever. It's just and again, that table view, I can drill down. I can filter services based off of my service name. And, if there's something that's missing here that you want, like if you want more enhanced, search functionality, something, give us that feedback. Let us know what you're looking for. But again, high level monitoring view, I see my service. I can see the status of that service. So if it's in a draining state, so meaning we're decommissioning this service, I'll see that here under the status. And then if there's an active deployment that's happening, I can see in real time from this view how many services I have in active deployment.
So when I think about how I used the console, the console is useful for a couple of big situations. One is I need to learn the new service, so I want to step through the workflow and see how the console guides me through it. That way I understand how the pieces all fit together. And I think the new console does an amazing job at that. And then number two, the other thing was I need to troubleshoot something. And when I'm troubleshooting an ECS service, what do I need to know? I need to find the name of the service and make sure I'm looking at the right thing. And then I need to see what's the task definition and revision that's deployed right now. And in the old console, that information was not, it was available, but it wasn't easy to see and easy to get to. And here it is. I can see not only what I just mentioned, but also health, which is going to be important to me as well. And then if I needed to grab the ARN with a copy paste or something like that, I would be able to do that. So like all the major components are just right here at my fingertips. And then I didn't even realize the filter thing that you just pointed out, Adam. Like that's really cool because as a DA, I'll have a lot of sample services deployed, but I won't always have hundreds of them. And our customers, on the other hand, will have hundreds of services a lot of times, maybe even into the thousands. And, to be able to just sit there and quickly filter out everything that you don't care about and only look at the things that you do is super handy.
So I want to highlight one thing where pretty much everything that you just spoke in terms of improvements, they are very much driven from our user research initiatives, the testing that we have been doing, where we actually observe our customers and really understand empathize with their processes, empathize with their problems. So when you think about improvements for us, to shout out or to put in the feedback channels, talk in terms of your processes, talk in terms of your issues with your tooling, and maybe we would be able to address this either in the console here or maybe through some other way where we are available in your context and useful to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's, so just going back to that, the task definition and the revision. So when you deploy a new, an update to your service, generally with that comes a new version of your task definition. So in this view right here, I am able to see if, backend service A is not working as I expect, I can go straight to that task definition from here, the specific version of that task definition that's deployed, to get more insight into what's changed and what's different. And of course, there's a task view as well. So here is where you can do some more advanced filtering. So if I wanted to filter based off of a revision of a task, what container instances it's running on and so on, I can do that as well.
Should we try it?
Yeah, what should we, let's,
I don't know. Let's deploy a task revision and see what happens.
so, oh, you want to update a service? I like it.
I mean,
All right,
let's get crazy.
let's get crazy. So, okay, so let's create a new revision of this service. So for backend A, I'm going to add another container. I don't know, for fun.
Sure.
I'm going to do Redis. I'm going to go latest because I want to go bleeding edge all the time.
Scary.
I don't even remember Redis's port. So I'm just going to add another container to my containers definition. So now my task definition is ready to go. And
if we go back, what does the graph look like, or the console?
Well, so now I have to, so let's update it. So to edit my service, to update it in the console. So this was something we were talking about right before. Customers really like, and I think Brent, you were mentioning this, you read this somewhere. They like that now when you update a service, you want to change the task count. That's it. It's super easy to do. It's just right there, front and center, right when I hit edit the service.
Yeah, it used to be several clicks, and now it's like 2 clicks. It's awesome.
It's really nice. So you can see I'm going to deploy my latest version. So right now we're on 1. We will go to 2. We'll click update. So
and also, I don't, maybe I could be misremembering because it's now been a while, but the default was the latest version.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it being that way. I thought I remembered it being whatever version you were on at the time. So that's useful too, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
So, yeah.
Oh, nice. What does blue mean? It's not green.
Pending.
Which means it's in the process. Again, all of these color schemes are super accessible. So you can see, even if you have like issues with color blindness or a couple other like accessibility issues, you can visualize them. There are also like screen readers that help through these UI components. So very excited about the foundational design systems work that our like larger design team has been doing, and that is like now being reflected here.
That's really
fantastic. Cool. And you can see, so I have a deployment going on right now. You can see the last deployment in the console. It was 3 days ago. And now you see my new deployment coming in. It's now become primary. And eventually the old deployment will phase out as we've health checked.
Also, by the way, let's just give a tiny shout out to the fact that you deployed 10 new Fargate tasks in basically a minute. Like, yeah, let's recognize that. I mean,
it's sometimes, we do it so often, we overlook these things, and that's a great call out, Brent. But while we're here, let's just examine. So I drilled down into my service, and I wanted to see the active deployments. I went to the deployments tab. I can see all the deployments, the deployments for my service, and now you can see it's starting to drain. Yep. So those tasks are gone. But take a look up here. So we have my deployment configuration, excuse me, for this service front and center. So if, so right now in the console, the latest console update, only rolling deployment is supported. But as we support more deployment mechanisms, we're going to be able to see those right here. Yeah. Actually, so if it was blue-green, if I was using the blue-green code deploy, I would know right away how I deploy my service.
Right. And again, just to add, like, as we are thinking about user journeys across this, we are very much aware that when you talk about AWS as a user, you're talking about it as a platform. And so if you think that within your tool chain, there are integrations that like should go from here to somewhere else in some other consoles, please let us know. We would be happy to prioritize those in the journey maps.
That's really cool. So going back to the kind of the first tab here, which is just health, you can see right away, again, it's just kind of big and in your face, which I really like. I see here's the desired tasks, here's what's pending, here's what's running. And then I get to see the events. So in the notifications section here, these are the events that are happening around my service. So 3 minutes ago, or yeah, we triggered a new deployment. So we see the tasks started up. And then a minute ago, we see that we drained those other tasks. They stopped and our deployment is in a steady state. So from a kind of again, troubleshooting coming in here to see what's going on, at least from a scheduler perspective, I can see all the events. I can see the events here in the console for my service.
Yeah, that's super handy, and it's basically everything that you'd be looking for right up front. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, of course, if you need to drill in, then you have these other tabs that you can drill down to the individual task level, finding out all kinds of details about the individual tasks.
Right.
Yes.
And that's where all the logs would shortly come into picture. Right now, we are very much aware about the pain that people have, like our users have to go switching back and forth, but we are actively prioritizing it, working on it.
So McDerm G81 wants to know, any plans to have section relating to ECS instances if they're running off EC2?
Yes. That's also in some of the upcoming releases, not in the immediate release that is coming up in the near future, but yes, that is the goal, to have pretty much everything where you can monitor your infrastructure in one go, and you don't have to worry about like all the configurations that come in with like launch types, capacity providers. You can manage it in one single pane of glass.
Fantastic.
That's really cool. That's going to be awesome.
And so as I go through here, this is, and then someone had asked about logs. I see that just came up in the chat. So Rashid, I believe you mentioned that we are going to be releasing that.
Yes, in the upcoming release. Yeah, I don't have the timelines to share yet, but yeah, that's like in the next release that is coming up.
Cool. And yeah, I have to agree that that's one. I'm looking forward to that as well. I love having the logs there. It just makes things a whole lot easier.
Because you can always go over to CloudWatch logs and you can see the logs and everything. But then it feels a little bit more disjointed. Whereas when it's right here in the console with everything else, then it's more integrated. So that'll be really cool.
Yep. We will make sure that your troubleshooting workflows are ironed out, and hopefully with that addition of those logs at the task and service level, and also like the container instance metadata, that is one of the most asked features so far. We will make sure that all the troubleshooting and monitoring workflows are streamlined.
That's awesome.
So
go ahead, Brent.
You mentioned it, Adam, and let's just do it since we have the time. Let's change the count of a service.
Let's do it.
Because
really quick though, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. this service configuration, this is one of those things that you may easily overlook, but we preach if you're deploying containers in ECA, really anywhere, right? Any orchestrator, you should be auto scaling. You shouldn't have humans clicking buttons like I'm about to do when I scale up the tasks, right?
But
it happens, by the way, and like it's okay to go into the console if you have to, right?
Yep.
But I can see right here in my service configuration, I can see the metric that I'm using for scaling. I can see all the details around my auto scaling right here. So again, just it's something that maybe could be overlooked, but I think this is super helpful when you're looking at your service to understand at a high level, how do I scale?
Mm-hmm.
So there. Ooh.
Oh,
fancy. Yeah. So R2D2, submit that using the feedback also, the feedback mechanism, because this is good. This is good. A good idea.
Yep. And also, like, if you would like to participate in our detailed walkthrough with our user testing sessions, please sign up through the Research Council.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's really good feedback. So, okay, so let's go back. Let's update this service. And really quick, networking. You can see what VPC it's in, subnets, security groups, etc. So let's edit. And I'm just. What should I do? Should I do? What do you want? Pick the number, Brent.
Well, we don't want to go down, so let's go up. Let's go 20.
I'm going to go 30.
All right. Well, the point is that it's not 30 clicks to get it to go up. It's now 2. So,
yeah. And again, you see immediately in the console my desired tasks, what's running, and so on. And you could see here again, just to get that visualization, I've got 33%.
Go back up to the big view where we saw everything all at once, the single pane of glass of all of your clusters.
Yeah.
I just am wondering, see, it even shows through all the way up here. You can see, hey, that cluster is doing something.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
So, Brent, you and I can relate to this, and frankly, anyone running containers can relate to this. Is it when you have tasks that are flapping? Maybe you have a service that keeps coming up and down, up and down. If I see, I can look here from this view, and if I can see I'm having an issue in production or development, and I see, there's 11 pending tasks. This is probably something like that. I have a flapping service, so I can drill down and see. And then, by the way, drilling down, look here. You can see,
that's
really nice visualization. And
also,
it's really
I have to give a shout out to all the help panel integration work that we have done so far. So that will guide you in the troubleshooting journey. Even if you are new to ECS, our goal is to make sure it's easy for you while we are balancing out the needs of our existing customers.
So let's actually, talking about the ease, let's go to, all right, so I have a cluster. Now I want to deploy a service or a task for that matter. So I like how we've renamed, we've named it to deploy, right? I don't know what it used to be. I forgot already, but anyway, so it's very explicit, right? I want to deploy my containers. So if we talked about this guided user experience with sane defaults. So if I were to just only know that I have a task definition that I created and I want it to deploy with this revision, I can assign it, containers from the couch, and I can say I want 10 tasks.
Yep.
This will deploy a service, and a service, which I had mentioned earlier. What if I don't know what a service is? Well, it tells me here.
Yep.
So Rashida, did you want to talk about that a little bit? Kind of all the help that we've provided around here?
Yes. So a couple of things that I want to highlight in this flow. This was the major revamp, so to say, and we really thought this completely 360-degree change from where we were at in the previous console. And we took a lot of user inputs in terms of not just our existing users, but how new users are coming in and using the console. So I want to highlight one story here where one of our customer in one of the test panels, they mentioned how with this new workflow they will be able to just give it to their interns, and they can figure it out what is happening, and they can just go deploy it without the DevOps person guiding them through every single configuration. So there's that part also. We have added all that feedback, all those guided cues and messages and help text here, and the same defaults out of the box. So you just have to provide, you should know which task definition, what revision, and the service name that you want to give, and of course the number of tasks. That's it, and it's a seamless experience from there.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. The DevOps team, they don't even have to. It's just, hey, you're new, go to the console.
Yep.
The console will help you figure it out.
Yeah. So in this case, they mentioned that they were spending more and more time onboarding new users with ECS, and ECS console is a perfect learning tool for that. If you are new to containers and you want to just get started, this is the way to go. Start with the defaults and then go advanced.
Yeah. So I'm going to do containers from the couch A, and I'm just going to deploy this service. So I didn't change anything outside of just what's in the deployment configuration. So behind the scenes, and what was in there was VPC, the networking configuration. These were things that I didn't have to think about. It just defaulted. Now, Rashida, does it always default to the default VPC? What's our logic there when we decide on networking?
It is currently defaulting whatever to your default VPC. We want to like make it more intelligent, where a DevOps person would like set things at a high level, and that is like cascaded down. But like we are iteratively working towards that.
Very cool, and that sounds like a very usable case right there. So I deployed my service. Let's find it. Containers from the couch. We refresh. There it is. Containers from the couch. So that was pretty easy. I had a task definition. I named my service and I said, give me 10 tasks.
Yep.
And it deployed.
That is pretty easy.
And so someone in the chat did say the previous button said launch. So that sounds right.
Yes.
It
was even I've forgotten about it. Sorry.
So much going on. Okay. So now let's go a little more advanced. So now, I have same thing, task definition. I want to go containers from the couch B. I'm going to go one task here. But let's start at the top where we look at the compute configuration. So Rashida, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. But this is where we talk about, so we mentioned earlier, Fargate's the default. So with Fargate being the default, and frankly, I always recommend start with Fargate. If you don't have to manage, as Brent said, operating systems, patching, the underlying EC2 infrastructure, just don't if you don't have to. And there's not a real need. But of course, there's reasons why I could see customers wanting to use EC2. So if you go ahead.
Can I just add to the Fargate first approach? Again, driving from that customer obsessed mindset, like what we have learned so far from like hundreds of like seeing the deployments and learning more from the deployments and the user stories from our customers. Fargate is used increasingly in production. They lower the operational cost of like manually managing, configuring the EC2 instances. So our customers are loving it. We have baked in all those best practices also in this deploy form. It's not just the same defaults, but the best practices driven deployment, so to say.
That's fantastic. And, I think it's fair to say, as we talk about compute in ECS, we're shifting to talking as compute in the context of capacity providers. Mm-hmm. So we do have the option to choose launch type, which is where you would choose EC2 or Fargate. Right. But I think, going forward, we really want to grow we want to talk capacity providers, because capacity providers, I have a lot of flexibility, right? With a capacity provider, I can split across Fargate or Fargate Spot. Which in this example, why don't we do that actually? And let's highlight why capacity providers are so cool. So I could stick with the default, which goes to Fargate, but let's say I want to deploy a base of 4 Fargate tasks, but for everything else,
I think your first choice could be Fargate Spot, and
that's why. Thank you.
The underscore.
Yeah, something.
My Ring doorbell went off. That was it. So this was Fargate Spot. Thank you. Reading is something I struggle with at times. So we'll make Fargate Spot. So Fargate will be our base of 4, and then this, you don't set a base, but everything after we meet our base. Let's say I want to deploy for every 1 Fargate container, I want 4 to be Fargate Spot. So it's just more advanced ways of scheduling your containers in ECS. And by the way, if I had EC2, I'd have to add an EC2 capacity provider. But TLDR, huge benefit with capacity providers with EC2 is cluster auto scaling built in.
Nice.
So, all right. So I've set my compute. Now, this is where I can update my deploy options. So if I wanted, now the default is rolling update at this moment. I'm sure as time goes on, we'll add more here. But again, the defaults, or go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's probably the most common way. So certainly going to get the biggest number of people.
Yep, it is. It is one of the most common ways, and like very heavily used by not just like our existing new users, but also like for large deployments. So
Awesome.
Yeah, and so it defaults with a minimum of 100%, max of 200. Great question came in. Is there a big difference between Fargate and Fargate Spot? Well, so Fargate Spot is similar, the same concept as Spot for EC2 instances, where at a fraction of the cost, you get, basically compute that's just not being used. You get to take advantage of that. But of course, with Spot, as demand increases and those instances need to be, taken back, reclaimed. Good word, thank you. You get essentially a 2-minute notice, and then it terminates.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference. Whereas Fargate is like our on-demand version of running Fargate. So yeah, these are the defaults for how I deploy. I can choose a load balancer. If I wanted to put my service behind a load balancer, I can either create a new one or just simply use an existing one in this situation, and as well as choose what container I want to load balance. So I got to tell you, this is really, it's making the process of doing this a lot easier. Having to create a load balancer, create target groups, and think about these things outside of this, doing it with outside of the context of the service can be challenging. So
yeah, it used to have to bounce you out to the load balancer console,
yes.
let you do your work, then come back to this and hit the little reload button, and either refresh the whole page and start all over, or sometimes it was nice when it would just reload.
Yeah, so just to add to this, I have to give the shout out to entire team, because this entire form was built through a lot of iterations. So which means there was a lot of like empathy, user empathy that was baked in, and not just like coming from our user testing session, but even equally passionate builders who were like giving their inputs, like this is how it should be, this is how our customers are using it, and we were actively testing this out. And so going back and forth with that load balancer use case that you just talked about, Brent, I think all of those are like now minimized.
That's cool. That's very cool.
That's awesome. And then, the last component here is networking configuration. So if I wanted to choose a VPC, I want to choose the subnets. If I want to run only in private or only in public, I can choose that here, as well as the security group for my task as well. So, and then, tags, I that's pretty self-explanatory. But so really this service here is, I've just changed the compute. I'm using Fargate and Fargate Spot as my capacity providers, and I'm deploying, but look, I missed something.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want a load balancer. So let's get rid of that. And there we go. So I deployed, and that's that. So we can wait here for my new service to come up. And I would like to show a little bit of the capacity provider, distribution there, but you can see it's spinning up tasks, and that was it. Pretty straightforward and simple.
Yeah, that's super easy. And that's something you could totally do, all in the console versus, used to, we would say, oh, go to the console, but you had to know so much already, or already have pre-built, several of these components like the load balancer or the VPC with subnets or the security group, et cetera, et cetera. So like having it all just right here is super handy.
Yeah. All the docs are also integrated, so you don't have to, like, as a new user or new hire on the team, you don't have to ping your DevOps guys or girls every single time.
That's cool.
Yeah, very helpful.
Well,
I think that's it.
We're about out of time, but are there any last minute things that we need to make sure to point out?
Rashida, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for walking through all those changes. And thank you, everyone, for providing your inputs. Please keep sharing your feedback through the feedback channel. That's the only ask. super excited to share all of this. And there are new features coming in real soon.
Awesome.
And I will be, trust me, I will be talking about it on Twitter all the time. And look, if you feel like reaching out and that feedback is not enough and you want to talk to a human, ping me on Twitter, real@MJKeller. You have Brent Contained. And Ruchita has a Twitter, which I shared on my Twitter as well. So feel free to reach out to any of us.
Awesome. All right. With that, that's it for our week. So we're going to be back next week, and we're going to talk more about containers. So join us. I think we're gonna dive into some EKS topics next week, and Justin will be back on to help us out there. So until next week, I hope everyone has a great weekend, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.